Shalom, happy and joyful Sukkot. The festival of Sukkot is the most joyful of all the holy days. The sages call it Zman Simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing. In the Jewish community throughout the world, people feel the sense of happiness and freedom as the high holy days come to an end. Dwelling in the temporary booth remind us of all our earthly pursuit and in our needs to trust in Yahweh for everything. Sukkot is also considered the most universal holiday on the entire Jewish calendar. Messianic Jews and Christians also celebrate the festival across the globe. All this is a foretaste of the Messianic kingdom when there will be peace on earth. Israel's enemy will be defeated, and the Jews and the Gentiles will dwell together serving one true God. Sukkot is a prophetic shadow of the coming kingdom of heaven. The commandments of Sukkot take up the biggest section in the list of the festivals instruction in Leviticus 23. While we could spend time on each of the mitzvot mentioned that specifically deal with Sukkot, to dwell in booth, which mean sukkah. You shall dwell in booth for 7 days. All native Israelites shall dwell in booth, that your generation may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booth. When I brought them out of the land of Egypt, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Leviticus 23:42 and 43. The Torah instructs that all native Israelites shall dwell in booth, and all who are grafted into spiritual Israel. James, the brother of Joshua, says, "Brothers, listen to me. Simeon has related how Yahweh first visited the Gentile to take from them a people for his name, and with these words of the prophets agree. Just as it is written, after this I will return and I will rebuild the tent," which meant the Sukkah of David, "that has fallen, and I will rebuild its ruin, and I will restore it, and the remnant of mankind may seek Yahweh, and all the Gentiles who are called by my name, says Yahweh, who makes these things known from of old." Acts 15:13 through 18, quoting Amos 9:11. The rebuilding of the Sukkah of David represent the restoration of the Davidic monarchy in the Messianic kingdom. It is in that day that the Gentile will be called by Yah's name and will be included in the kingdom. This connects the festival of Sukkot to the Messianic era and alludes to Zechariah 14. All the nation will go up to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival that includes the obligation to dwell in the Sukkah. Fifth species, another commandment central to the festivals of Sukkot, and one that indirectly points to the nations. In this waving of palm branches, you shall take on the first day the fruit of a splendid tree, branches of the palm tree, and both of leafy tree, and the willow of the brook, and you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim 7 days. Leviticus 23:40. The 4 species that were to be waved before Yahweh every day of the 7 days festival. The 4 species were palm branch, called lulav, myrtle branches, called hadas, willow branches, called arava, and the citron, called etrog. The first 3, all branches, are grouped together and collectively referred to us. The lulav, this was a type of offering unto Yahweh and was to enhance the joy of the holy day. Nehemiah, in his account of the festivals of Sukkot, mentioned a 5th species. On the 2nd day, the heads of the fathers' houses of all the people, with the priests and the Levites, came together to Ezra the scribe in order to study the word of the law, and they found it is written in the law that Yahweh had commanded by Moses the people of Israel should dwell in booth during the feast of the 7th month, and that you should proclaim it and publish it in all their town in Jerusalem. Go out to the hills and bring branches of olive, wild olive, myrtle, palm, and other leafy trees to make booth, as it is written. And all the assembly of those who had returned from the captivity made booth and lived in booth From the days of Joshua the son of Nun to that day the people of Israel had not done so, and there was very great rejoicing. Nehemiah 8:13-17 emphasize, along with the myrtle, palm, and willow branches, Nehemiah mentioned branches of olive, wild olive. Why would Nehemiah add to the list of Leviticus 23? This description of the pilgrim returning from captivity, the Torah being read in Jerusalem, is reminiscent of prophecies about the Messianic era in which the nations will come up to Jerusalem as the word of Yah goes forth from Zion, as we shall see, especially in Zechariah 14. Sukkot is a prophetic picture of the coming Messianic kingdom, in which all the nations shall go up to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival. The mention of wild and cultivated olive branches here in Nehemiah prophetically alludes to the nations being grafted into Israel and joining the Jewish people to worship Yahweh, the living Elohim. If some of the branches were broken off, and you, although a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant towards the branches. If you all remember, it is not you who support the root, but the root that supports you. For if you were cut from what is by nature a wild olive tree, and grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, the natural branches, be grafted back into their own olive tree? Romans 11:17-18 and 24, other commandments in the Torah clearly point to the universal nature of Sukkot. The commandments to rejoice in the festival includes the sojourner. You shall keep the feast of booths 7 days, and when you have gathered in the produce from your threshing floor in your winepress, you shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son and your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, the Levites and the sojourner, the fatherless and the widow who are within your town. For 7 days you shall keep the feast to Yahweh your Elohim at the place that Yahweh will choose, because Yahweh your Elohim will bless you in all your produce and in all the works of your hand, so that you will be altogether joyful. Deuteronomy 16:13-15. The meaning of this verse is that the stranger should rejoice in the gifts given to the Jewish people, so that it is known that there is joy among Israel. The evidence for this to come, the verse that says in Leviticus 23:42, every native-born citizen in Israel shall dwell in booths. If we look even deeper, we can find another indication of Sukkot, as the Torah gives a second name for the festival, Feast of Ingathering. You shall keep the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in from the field the fruit of your labor. Exodus 23:16. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks, the first fruit of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end. Exodus 34:22. The Feast of Ingathering point to the fact that Sukkot take place at the end of the agriculture year. Since the harvest is now completed, the Torah adds the expression at the end of the year and at the year end to signify the transition from one agriculture year to the next. But if we look at Sukkot as a prophetic representation of the Messianic kingdom as well, the Feast of Ingathering can also refer to the end of this current age. When the harvesting of soul from the nations has been completed and the new era, the Messianic era, begins, Yahushua's frequently used agricultural symbolism to describe the work of spreading the gospel. The one who sow good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sown them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned, so will it be the end of the age. Matthew 13:37-40. This is also a picture of the ingathering of the exile of Israel that will take place at the beginning of the Messianic era. In that day, Yahushua the Messiah will gather all the Jewish people who have been scattered throughout the earth and bring them back to their land. The prophets tell us that this is one of the major jobs the Messiah must accomplish. Therefore, on the spiritual level, the gathering referred not just to the crops of Israel, but to an ingathering of the exile of Israel and the righteous from all nations in the Messianic era. The strongest evidence for Sukkot being a universal festival and also connected to the Messianic era is found in the Haftarah and the prophets. There is read on Sukkot and Zechariah 14 pains of the end time battle in which all the nations of the earth will go and fight against Jerusalem. Yahushua come to rescue and defeat the enemy of Israel once and for all, and those of the nations who are left will go up to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. Everyone who survive of all the nations that have come against Jerusalem shall go up year after year to worship the King of Kings and the Lords of Lords, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to keep the Feast of Booths. And if any of the families of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King Yahushua, Yahweh of hosts, there will be no rain on them. And if the family of Egypt does not go up and present themselves, then on them there shall be no rain. There shall be the plague with which Yahweh afflicted the nations that do not go up to keep the feasts of booths. These shall be a punishment to Egypt and a punishment to all the nations that do not go up to keep the feast of booths. Zechariah 14:16-19. Celebrating the festival of Sukkot will no longer be optional for the nations of the earth. Indeed, those who do not go up will be punished with drought. Following the wondrous event of Yahushua's intervention against the nations who wage war against Jerusalem, all nations who inclined their hearts to Yahweh will survive, and those events that they will go up to Jerusalem every year to prostrate themselves before Yahweh and acknowledge him as a king of the earth, and they will go up to keep the Feast of Booths. Every year they will commemorate the wonders performed by the Creator on that day of retribution against the nations. Sukkot will be celebrated as a festival commemorating the destructions of Israel's enemies. It makes sense then that those of the nations who do not go up against Jerusalem and are spared will also celebrate Israel's victory. All the children of Israel will be taught the Torah by the Holy One himself, Yahushua HaMashiach. Blessed be he, for it is said, all your children shall be taught by Yahushua. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from every tribe, and from people and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, salvation belongs to our Yahweh, who sits on the throne and the Lamb. They are before the throne of Yahweh, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. Revelation 7:9-10 and 15. This image is clearly shown of a prophetic utterance of Zechariah, in which everyone from the nation will come up to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Booths. Here in Revelation, the nation come up to the throne of Yahweh in the temple with palm branches in their hands, which are the lulav. The festival of Sukkot is a prophetic picture of the coming kingdom of heaven, a time when the Jews and the Gentiles will join together in worship of one true Yahweh, our Elohim. When the Messianic era is inaugurated, when we will all celebrate harvests of souls from the nations and the ingathering of the exiles of Israel, Just as the Sukkah and the Lulav remind us in this present time that everything we have is a gift from Yahweh, and we are sustained only by His hand. So we will see that it is only our Father Yahweh, Yahushua, and Ruach HaKodesh in heaven who can bring true peace on the earth and destroy the enemy of Israel once and for all. For the Jews and the Gentiles celebrating the festival now, it is a first fruit of the glorious time. As we join together during the festival of Sukkot, this present age of coming Messianic era is a reminder that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. This is Prophet Ezra wishing you happy and joyful Sukkot on behalf of Torah Keeper. Yahushua bless you all. Shalom.